Hi everyone, let's get focused with InFocus, the series where we tune into the most talked about topics making waves across Canada. Each episode, we are bringing you in the inside scoop with experts, influencers, and leaders who are shaping the conversation. Ready to dive in? Let's go. Welcome to InFocus. I'm your host, Ayaan, and today I have Dwayne Mason with us. So, Dwayne, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I've been in the addictions field for many years. I'm an instructor here at VCCT and teaching the addictions courses as well as some other courses.
You're an addictions support worker instructor, right? Why this subject? Why this topic? Was there any instance that led you here, or that was something that happened organically?
And it was an area that I thought was in need, and I wanted to do something that was meaningful and that was needed.
What was like before turning into an instructor for addiction support? What were you doing before that? What was your life like?
Well, I was a business owner. One of the things that I did was I did quite a bit of volunteering, and I made a trip to what kind of propelled me in this direction was I kind of made a trip to Nicaragua, Central America, and I made a trip down there, and I built some houses there for some people. And through that experience, I fell in love with it, and with the idea of helping. And I went back there 7 years in a row to raise money and help in that way. And so that kind of shaped my taste, I guess, for helping because I got so much out of that.
So with regards to Canada, do you think is the situation of drug addiction and opioids, is it like getting better? Are people aware about not being addicted to these things, or it's the other way around?
Well, in my opinion, the situation itself does not seem to be getting better. And how can you tell that? There's still a lot of people dying. There's still a lot of people, suffering from addiction. There's still a lot of not enough programs for people. So, although there is quite a bit of help, I think there also too in the general public there's and also in the medical community there's not really a good understanding of what addiction is. I think there's still a lot of misconceptions around it.
Misconceptions like?
Well, that addicts or alcoholics or people that are in these situations, it's something that maybe they've chosen to do, or they've made some kind of a decision, or to be there, or they don't care about their lives, which is something that's not even close to the truth, right? Nobody would choose to be in these situations and go through this extreme pain that the people are in with all that suffering. So
if I have to track the journey of an addict, what's going on in their brain? Like, what's the point where they are just doing drugs for recreation, and then the same recreation turns into addiction so severe that they land up homeless, losing their jobs and having troubles with their family? What's that point? What leads to that shift?
Well, I think most people, again, you can never say always about anything, but most people start out in a recreational area. Now, why some people choose to do drugs and some people, choose to do other things with their lives, again, it's so varied why people start. But there's a lot of so why people might say end up on the downtown east side. There's usually more to their story than just drugs. They're usually a lot of trauma, a lot of these things, a lot of mental illness, and they are self-medicating with the drugs and the alcohol. There's still a lot of people dying. There's still a lot of people, suffering from addiction. There's still a lot of not enough programs for people, once or twice, and they don't realize what could happen. They don't realize that they could get addicted. And addiction is a progressive disease, and once you sort of pass a point, it's kind of a point of no return as far as what's happened in the brain, what's happened in their lives. Maybe they've caused a lot of damage. So it's very, 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 very slow for most people, and so it just crosses this magic line that they can't return, and it's kind of too late to go back, and so that's how they end up. It's definitely not a planned thing. Nobody plans to be a drug addict or an alcoholic. That's not what they set out to do. So it takes them over in a way.
So with regards to different drugs like meth, cocaine, MDMA, is there a certain limit up to which a person cannot get addicted? For example, meth is something that if a person does twice, the person's probability of addiction may be like 90%. Is there something like that, or is it just
there's no, well, I would put it this way. Any of these drugs, meth, cocaine, fentanyl, they're illegal drugs made in illegal places for the most part, unless there is safe supply out there now. So there is really no fixed number that you could say, okay, well, I'm just going to do cocaine 5 times and you won't get addicted. The 6th time you will. Like, there is no line like that. So because it's different for everybody, right? There's some people that drink and do drugs for many years, but they never pass into a spot of addiction where it's interfering with their life to the point that they can't function anymore.
Well, these are hard drugs. What about the ones that are considered recreational drugs? And not just drugs, I believe alcohol is also one of the biggest addictions here in North America.
Yeah.
So if I have a friend and they're having a drink a week versus someone who is drinking more than a week, what are the signs that I should like stop my friend and go like, hey buddy, I think alcohol is a problem for you?
Well, I mean, one of the hallmarks of addiction, or you can tell that somebody's addicted, is that it's interfering with their life, right? So it's interfering with the regular activities that they want to do with their life. So it's starting to interfere with their relationships with their friends or their spouse or the relationship at work. So it's beginning to affect in a negative way the relationships and activities of their life in a negative way. That's when, and just as a point of note, the person sort of has to come to that realization themselves, right? So the part of addiction is the addiction says, this is not a problem, I'm just having fun. I mean, that's part of the mental conundrum that happens with addiction, is it tells you that it's not a problem, right? So the person themselves has to get to a point where they feel like this drug, this activity that they're doing is interfering with their life to a point that they don't want to live that way anymore, and they're going through a lot of pain and turmoil, and they decide themselves that they want to seek help. And by the time they do that, somebody's probably already said many times, hey, you might want to look at your usage, or you drink a little too much, or do you really need to smoke weed every single day? So people in their lives have probably already told them this, but they have to decide that themselves.
So another question that's coming to my mind is addiction, with regards to alcohol in particular, is it something that triggers something in the brain? And is it like the release of dopamine reserves? Is it like the release of serotonin? What is it about alcohol that makes it so addictive?
So people that get addicted to alcohol, I mean, it's a coping mechanism, right? It's a coping. All these drugs and it's a coping mechanism. So they're feeling a certain way, and it doesn't have to be happy, angry, sad. They're feeling in a way that is uncomfortable for them, And when they, especially with alcohol, it takes that feeling away and they feel differently, right? So they're trying to sort of escape that feeling that they have. Alcohol, it kills more people and harms more people than any of the other drugs combined, right? That's the worst one.
Where do people get addicted? Is it related to some particular activity in the brain?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. Alcohol. It's kind of described as sort of a two-part thing where it's a mental obsession coupled with a physical allergy. Okay. So for some people, when they drink alcohol, for an alcoholic, it does something different in their body and in their mind than it does to a non-alcoholic person. Okay, so it'd be similar to like a food allergy. If you have an allergy to shrimp, and I don't, you eat a shrimp, your throat swells up, you pass out, you die, right? I can eat shrimp all day. So alcohol for some people just acts differently in their body, and it creates a craving, right? So then once alcohol goes into the body, it creates this phenomenon of craving, and they want more and more and more. And that's not, again, most people that are non-alcoholic, they don't feel that. They have a couple of drinks, they're feeling a little dizzy, they're feeling out of control. They're like, I don't like this. Right? But for the alcoholic, that feels good. The addiction, some people just act differently when they put alcohol in their body, and other people, they don't like that feeling. Denial in addiction is sort of this subconscious level. So denial in addiction is basically they don't know that they're addicted. Right? They think they're fine, right? Regular denial is, I don't know I know something, but I'm just not going to tell you, right? Like that's sort of regular denial. And in addiction denial, they don't even know.
I've noticed this particular kind of denial that you're talking about with weed smokers, that they say weed is not addictive. And there are also articles that suggest that weed is not addictive. What would you say? Do you think weed is addictive?
Well, if you're, need to smoke a substance every day, you need to smoke it to go to sleep, you need to smoke it to have fun, I would say there's something going on there, right? The important factor is, what is it about, the drug is really irrelevant when it comes to addiction, okay? The main point is what is it about your life that you have to use a substance to escape your normal feelings that you're having, right? Why is your life so unpalatable to you that you have to escape the reality of it by doing any substance, whatever that is, right? If it's weed, if it's alcohol, if it's one of these harder drugs, that's the real question.
So, have you, with regards to the downtown east side in Vancouver, like where it's known as the hub of drug use, what do you have you seen someone or have you heard any story where people have recovered from being in that state and now thriving?
So yes is the answer to your question. That's the short answer. Yeah, if there was no hope at all, it would be pointless. But there's a high relapse rate, but there are also some people, right, that are able to recover and are able to have, live happy, productive lives, for sure.
Have you noticed any patterns with people who recover successfully versus the people who are trying but they keep on relapsing to their old ways?
Yeah, most definitely. There's many programs available for people who really want to recover, and the number one thing when you're trying to recover from, basically it's a fatal malady, it's a fatal disease, alcoholism, drug addiction, where that goes is never good. It always gets progressively worse. So when somebody decides that, they want to do this, they want to change their life, they have to put 100% of their effort into that. And that's getting better. So doing recovery activities, right? So what are recovery activities? Well, it might be, going to 12-step recovery meetings, and things of this nature, right? Involving yourself in recovery activities, changing your social network. But you really have to be diligent about that. And when I say it has to come first, that means when the addict or alcoholic wakes up in the morning and they make a decision, they gotta think to themselves, is this going to be good for my recovery? Should I do this or should I do that?
You've mentioned addiction as a disease. How important is the terminology that we use with addicts or around addiction? Because I've noticed many people looking at drug addicts in the downtown east side, and they don't consider it a disease. They just consider them mentally ill.
Is in fact, looked at as a disease. There's a medical journal like the DSM-5, which is in there. You would find it under substance use disorder, right, or alcohol use disorder. And so in there, there's a list of symptoms, and there's a questionnaire, and you would ask a person, like, if a person went to the doctor and they say, listen, doctor, I think I have a problem with drugs and alcohol, they could pull out this questionnaire, and if they answer yes, to these list of, it's 11 questions, and so there is definitely a screening process that they can go through, and it is classified as a disease in the medical book, in the medical community. Insurance companies look at it that way. You can't be fired because you have an alcohol or a drug problem, because it's considered a disability. And this is quite mainstream in the average person may not see it that way. But
so, can you explain me the concept of daily reprieve and what it practically means for someone who's fighting addiction?
So, because addiction is something that you deal with every day, right? Because it's not, like we talked about a little earlier, taking the drugs and the alcohol is the solution to what's ailing them. So when they stop drinking or using, they still have that problem. They still have that way of thinking about an addict or an alcoholic. They have a way of thinking that can be painful in their recovery, if that's, 1 day or 20 years, to kind of picture my life in, I can never drink again under any and all circumstances. It can be a very overwhelming way to look, right? And that can be discouraging. So what we try to do in recovery is we tell people, listen, you don't have to not drink forever. You just have to not drink for today. You just have to not use today. Tomorrow, we don't know what's going to happen. Right? And, the fact is that, somebody that is an alcoholic, somebody that is a drug addict, they live on the knife's edge every day of, all they got to do is reach over, pick up, and, this would kick in again. So it's just a way of looking at life that is very helpful in the way that, it brings them into the now. This is where you're living. Just don't drink today. And as it gets tougher, like maybe they're having a tough day, right? They say, we're just not going to drink for 5 minutes. And I'm just not going to drink for 5 minutes. Then after that, I'll make another decision, right? And so we just break it. It's a way to break it down into something palatable and something doable.
Based on my research, I've noticed that there are a couple of other methods to, fight addiction. One was 12-step method, I believe. The other was smart recovery, and the third was CBT. What are the pros and cons of these 3 methods?
This is a big question. In a lot of treatment centers, they would use CBT because there's empirical evidence that you can sort of watch somebody through documentation, see that they're getting better, right? You can document, today they came into the interview at the counseling session and they said, first time they were here, they didn't say anything positive about themselves. Second time they came in, they said one thing positive about themselves. They're here for 90 days, and they did a counseling session, and they had a very positive attitude about themselves. And so CBT is very popular in that way because works good for insurance companies and things like that. I mean, the 12-step method, it's been around for a long, long time, over 80 years. Millions and millions and millions of people have gotten sober and gotten past many other addictions using sort of a 12-step method. So there's AA, which is Alcoholics Anonymous. There's NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous. There's OA, which is Overeaters Anonymous. There's GA, which
These are different kinds of 12-step?
Well, they're all 12-step programs.
Okay.
Right? They're all 12-step programs, but they're all derived from the first 12-steps program, which was Alcoholics Anonymous. But the first one, which is the most important one, right? Which is, and all these different types of gambling, etc. The step one is always the same, which is, I'm powerless over, in this case, alcohol, and my life had become unmanageable. So this is the one that people have to get 100%. Is the first one. So there's the first step in all of these is the admission of powerlessness over this. They've done everything they can.
Acceptance, basically.
Yeah, right. That I need help with this. I can't do it on my own.
If you had to summarize the 12-step model or any of the addiction models, what are the 3 to 4 key steps that are involved? First can be acceptance. What's the second overarching step that one should take?
So admitting that we're powerless over this, as far as the 12-step goes, admitting that we're powerless over this, and I need to seek help. I'm unable to do this by myself. That's number one. If you're making me come up with another one, I would say the second one is getting involved in the community. Right, getting involved in a supportive community, because we all live in communities, and when you're a drug and alcohol user, you're involved in that community, right? You're involved with people. You hang out with people that do drugs. That's what you do, right? You hang out with people that drink. You go to, so that part has to change. Like and this is probably one of the biggest changes that maybe people don't realize is it really. For most people, their whole social network has to change, and that can be a huge job. Zoom has made a big difference there now, so that people can log into many. Was one good thing that came out of COVID was a lot of meetings, recovery meetings, went online, and so now people have more access to that type of thing. But I would say the two most important things is. You got to admit that you got a problem. Second thing is get involved with a community.
How much of addiction is the substance versus how much of it is the trauma or someone's past? Is there a percentage around it?
There's no absolutes in addiction and using mental health in general, right? Because everybody's so individual. That it's different. I would say it's different for everybody.
Are you worried about vaping as an addiction?
Of course, right? Yeah, vaping. It's a terrible addiction. Right, people are addicted to that. It's nicotine, right? People are 1,000% addicted to that. It's just a replacement for cigarettes.
Well, you've been in this field for many years now. Mm-hmm. So how has your relationship changed with these substances and this knowledge that you have? Is are you always regulating yourself? Are you always observing people and their alcohol patterns while you're out there?
Yeah, it's just not for me. I live a better life without it. And most of my clients would agree with that. That they're very excited to not be addicted or with that ball and chain, because it turns somebody's life, makes it very small, right? They can't get away, they can't get out, it uses all their money, it destroys their relationship. So mostly in the serious cases, they end up unemployed, maybe, in a room by themselves somewhere.
I noticed that the program at VCCT includes pharmacology training. Mm-hmm. Why is understanding the biological aspect of addiction so crucial for counselors whose focus primarily on the psychological dimension?
I mean, there's definitely a part of treatment that involves detoxification. There's opiate antagonist therapy, right? That there's methadone, Suboxone. So there's certain drugs that are used as regularly in helping people in drug addiction, how they interact with one another. There's some that are specific to addiction itself, like the rehab, but it's also just understanding, because it's kind of a medical sort of an idea, right? You want to make sure you kind of understand, what is this person on? So if you're putting them in a treatment, through a treatment plan, you need to understand, about these drugs generally.
Well, have you seen any big changes in your students after they've graduated from your program?
I mean, one comment that I had recently was that, their opinion on addicts change. As we walk around the streets, here in our city, we see people all the time. We see them on the corners, we see them, this person said that she used to be, more scared of them, right? She used to be, have a bit of a judgment on them, but, after the course, and we kind of explained, really what is addiction, right? It's not just a moral deficiency and, they're criminals, but, they're people that are suffering and they need help. That's what they are. And so it kind of changed, her opinion, her understanding of what drug addiction is.
If someone is considering a career change to addiction counseling, what is something that they need to know?
That's a good question. There's many things I guess they need to know, but I mean, the main thing is, are you a person that has a high level of compassion, for people that, are suffering, right? Because that's essentially, what you're dealing with is people that are suffering and they're trying to adapt to the world in a maladaptive way.
If you could communicate one thing or say something to someone who's suffering with addiction and is feeling hopeless, what would you say to them?
I would say that there is hope, and that I believe this personally, that 1,000% that a person can be sober, that is a possibility for each and every person, that they do have a chance, that it's not hopeless. That's what I would tell them. So don't give up. Right?
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was great having you here, having this conversation. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned.